tensions have escalated in Manipur for a month now. Fresh incidents of violence have erupted in Manipur, wherein the state has witnessed a series of drone and rocket attacks. Several weapons have been recovered every day by the police, and these incidents are reported every day. Now, Manipur Chief Minister Biren Singh has baited for political talks. He has appealed to all communities to hold a dialogue, and he emphasized that non-violence can be resolved if there is a conversation. Youth have been abducted, and these were the youth that had to give their examination. The CM has ordered a DGP to search for other two abducted youths also, and one militant has been killed in Manipur. The motive behind the killing is not yet confirmed, and political talks have in fact not really helped the situation so far, but there is once again an appeal to change the status quo that exists in Manipur at this point in time. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director of India Foundation and Defence expert. Major Muhammad Ali Shah, defence expert, also joins us on the program. He's served in Manipur and knows the state like the back of his hand. Tritankar, Shetri Mayum, Mighty Voice, also with us on the program. Kachin Langel, he's from the Central Secretariat as Director of the Ministry of Water Resources. He's a Cookie Voice. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. This is a very sensitive topic which we have continued to talk about. We have continued to in fact tried to understand what exactly is failing Manipur at this point in time. I'm going to start with General Katoch, who's been with us on a number of these conversations in the past as well. In fact, General Katoch, the Home Minister, just a few days ago at a conclave was questioned about what was happening in Manipur, and he was asked, what is the solution? He did emphasize that the violence has come down if you compare it with what happened in 2023. He also spoke about the fact that there are other powers at play, General Katoch, that are in fact helping these people, these miscreants, these people who want to continue this atmosphere of hatred and tension in Manipur. They are getting outside help. We've also discussed that, and of course we also know who the likely suspect is when it comes to this help. But the fact of the matter is that absolute stability, General Katoch, is still something which is eluding Manipur at this point in time. It is not good for Manipur. It is not good for India. It is not good for secularism. It is not good for diversity. It is not good for the constitutional values that India stands for. Today is Gandhi Jayanti. We are obviously trying to remember what that man also stood for. If he was around and he looked at what was happening in Manipur, he would be dismal about it. What is your take on this resurgence of disturbances? They did die out in the middle, General Katoch, but obviously there is something that we are not doing right.
Thank you, Vineet. Vineet, when you look at Manipur, I think the situation has always been a bit complicated. It is not something which is not problematic even a few decades earlier. I was there about 2.5 decades ago, and of course that time the situation was very tense, and there was a lot of insurgency all around. But there have been issues and there have been causes, and they are long term. To expect that something which is a long term grievance of people can be resolved quickly, that may not be the case. And secondly, what I would like to say is simply to state that there's an absence of violence is normalcy. That too, I don't think is the case. There may have been an absence of violence, but I don't think there was an absence of normalcy. There was an absence of normalcy. Now, in my view, if there are differences between communities, the people have a great deal of resilience to take all those differences on board and still live with each other. The problem really comes in when external forces come in and exacerbate the situation, especially in terms of funding. And I think here what we are seeing in Manipur is the presence of external forces. It is not overt. You can't see those external forces, but I know that they are there. By and large,
what are these external forces, sir, according to you?
I would specifically name the forces which are aligned to the United States, the same forces which carried out a coup in Bangladesh. You see, they have a. Would
you mind naming them, sir? Would you mind naming them?
The US.
Oh, right.
US. In my view, it is the US. It is the US deep state, and they are using Christian proxy groups to fund this terrorism or this insurgency.
What about China, sir? China also features in this dialogue.
Actually, while China also features in this dialogue, and I'm absolutely certain the Chinese will actually get in wherever they can, but the point is that the start point has not been the Chinese. The start point lies elsewhere, and there's a broader aim. While India and the US have the best of friendship, but the US has also got certain other interests, and they don't want to see India as a competitor 1 or 2 decades down the line. So it is always good as far as the US strategy is concerned to keep India stable, but to keep certain areas of India unstable. The Northeast is one of them. And the Chinese and the American interests coincide here beautifully. I think that is the larger game plan we have to get in. Then, of course, the funding comes in from poppy, etc., etc. This has become a hot poppy area. And when you remove the poppy, people lose their livelihood. And again, the problems come in. But these are all resolvable through political means. And I'm absolutely certain if the call is heeded, or the Chief Minister's call is taken for talks, that is a very positive step. But people must come forward. But will the external agencies allow them to come forward? That is the million-dollar question. I'm not very sure. But it is my view that there are external forces. They don't want peace. They don't want war, but they don't want peace. They want to create instability, and that is the pressure point which they can keep on India, just to keep India aligned to their particular point of interest. To control India's foreign policy, this is one of the tools which they use, both the United States and the Western powers, and they're rooted through the church.
Okay, interesting, sir. Interesting inputs there. Mr. Langale?
Sir.
So, what do you make of the situation? General Katoch is of the opinion that there are outside powers that are stirring up these disturbances, including deep states of the United States of America as well as China.
I'm very skeptical about this, sir.
Why do you say so, sir?
The problem is within Manipur. Even if they are involved, it will be minimal from outside. But as long as the people in Manipur are determined not to allow them or to keep peace, no one can disturb. Now we have a government. The government has to be proactive and fair to every community. The law must be applied equally without discrimination. Blaming foreign powers, okay, may be right, may be wrong, I'm not so sure, but foreign power won't be able to do anything if India determines to maintain peace, law and order. So I think that is a very lame excuse to put the blame on others to avoid taking realistic action to control the situation. So I'm really skeptical about foreign powers. Maybe they are, I'm not sure. But what I'm sure is we, the people, are allowing the situation to go out of hand, and the blame must go on the government. The government cannot escape responsibility. If the government of India is not that weak, they can handle any situation from inside or outside agencies. But I don't see any practical and determination from the side of the government.
So what would you attribute this problem to? Why do you think it is still the friction between the communities which is leading to this?
Yes, and the government is not taking any proactive action. See, simply put, you have to have the
But
same
sir, where are
law
these communities getting these sophisticated weapons from, sir? How would you say that is?
Smuggling, drug smuggling, arms smuggling, everything is there. That's okay. Everyone is doing. But if the government strengthen the border security, if the army is allowed freedom, then how can they come in? Some allowed, some people are allowed, some people are not allowed. When there is no fairness, when there is no real determination on the part of the government, it can't happen like that. It will go on if we have a government like this.
Okay, let's see what Mr. Tritankar has to say about this. Mr. Tritankar?
Yeah.
Do you agree with what Mr. Langale has said, that this is of course not the doing of any outside powers? It is obviously the friction, the animosity that still exists between the two communities, and of course the drug back and forth that is leading up to this tense situation. But still, the sophisticated weaponry is something which is obviously worrying the Chief Minister as well. The Home Minister did mention that the entire border has been authorized by the central government to be sealed off, and they are working on that. The fencing is being put up. But do you think by that time that project is complete, the disturbances might even go up?
I would say there are issues within communities, and there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda going on, right? But I would tend to agree with General Katoch, where he said that there would be foreign influence to an extent, because it's been going on for too long. I mean, where is the funding coming? Where's the ammunition coming from? Where is the high-end, sophisticated weapons coming from? There has to be a sort of funding for such a major escalation to happen in this region, and that's where you.
So you're saying that the Americans are involved?
I'm not saying who is involved. It can be the Americans, it can be the Chinese. It's something which needs to be figured out by the intelligence agencies. But definitely there's a foreign hand, because you cannot survive and go on a prolonged manner of guerrilla warfare without funding and without support, right? Apart from that, the complex issues that the different communities in this region face, a lot of people are trying to propagate and tell their own stories, and through social media, spread false information, which further increases the mistrust between the communities. But I think foreign influence will always be there, as General Katoch said. It's in the interest of the larger superpowers currently for India to remain distracted in certain areas of the region. Absolutely correct. But at the same time, I think this is something which can be handled internally if the government of India takes a proactive step to make sure that everything is under control. Because if you see, there are about 86,000 odd troops stationed. I don't know what these troops are doing apart from maintaining or guarding certain regions in the valley, right? If you give army the free hand to carry out operations and do everything what is needed to get peace, it can be done easily. It's just the willpower needs to be there. And I think the government, the state and the center have to make sure that, peace is brought about as quickly as possible, because so that life can go back to normalcy. And the external factors will always be there. It's how the Indian state handles those external factors, which will, in the long term decide how this region is going to progress or move towards development. But in general, it's a mix of things. It's quite a complex situation here. You cannot just put it on the external factors. There are issues which the external factors are using to gain, I would say, disturbance or their agenda in this region. So that is something which we cannot rule out. But it's quite complex. It's you need to be here, understand the culture, see what the differences are, to actually see where all this misinformation is flying about, and why there is so much distrust within the community, right? It's a longer debate.
Mohammad Ali Shah, defense expert, also with us on the program. Somebody who's seen Manipur and knows Manipur, I can very easily say, like the back of his hand. And Ali has been a part of this conversation in the past as well. Ali, where do you see this going? Every time we have a conversation about Manipur, things are going from bad to worse. And this time, I can actually literally sense, a desperation in Mr. Biren's voice about the situation that is continually haunting, not only the rest of the country, but perhaps even both the communities in Manipur. Where do you pinpoint, this detrimental situation?
Okay, Vineet, that's a very good question, and I totally agree with what my friend Sridhankar Singh said just now. In fact, I go back about 3 decades back earlier. What the love that I have for Manipur is, he is a man who taught me a lot, in fact, almost three decades back. So, Vineet, as Sridhankar Singh said, you give the army a free hand, you give the armed force a free hand, and I'm sure they are capable enough to sort out the mess that we are in. The very fact is, they have been a lot, and the easiest way actually when we cannot solve a certain issue is say, oh, there's a foreign hand behind that. That's a very, very easy, very simple way of doing it. Okay, agreed. Even if there's a foreign hand behind it, okay, there is a foreign. Okay, what's the way about? How do we curb it? How do we contain it? How do we control it? And there certainly is. I mean, as Sridhankar logically put it, there is a lot of money involved, weaponry involved. There is a lot of where all that coming from? That looting arms? No, it cannot. There is much more to it. What meets the eye? Now, regarding as to what Mr. Lagai said, yes, he showed his apprehension about the deep state or whatever. And as Ridankar said, he's not sure whether it's a deep state or the Chinese or wherever, but certainly there is 100% an external agency who is pumping in the money. Where is all the money coming from? It's difficult to survive. You try it without funds, you will not be able to get funds over there. In fact, a state like Manipur, Vineet, if I may, if you permit me, Manipur is such a beautiful state. It has not just contributed to the nation building. It has contributed, very few people would be knowing this. Let me declare it on your program. Manipur is a state which has contributed wholeheartedly towards international humanity and world peace. Let me tell you how. Right now, the topic of Lebanon is very hot, right? You know, how people would be knowing that the Indian ambassador to Lebanon is a Maite from Manipur. He's a Pangal. Mohammed Sheikh Rahman, he is from Manipur. There is a contingent of the Indian Army, which Indian Army sends its contingent to UN, right? For UN peacekeeping force to Sudan, to Lebanon, to Congo. In Lebanon, we have a contingent where they are Maite soldiers, they are Kuki soldiers, they are Naga soldiers, and they are working shoulder to shoulder to get world peace. I mean, what and where their own homes are in turmoil in Manipur. So Manipur is that state which we have neglected Manipur. It's a fact, whether people like it or not. The very fact is Manipur, a beautiful state, has been neglected for long enough by a lot of people. People do not know on map where Manipur was. I can vouch with conviction. I had a debate, I had an argument with a person who was saying Manipur is in Guwahati. Somebody else says Manipur is in Chhattisgarh. How disheartening and how hurting was that? I'm talking about much before the violence broke out, much before Manipur met with the headlines that it deserves. So a beautiful state which had a polo tournament there last year, a beautiful state which had Femina Miss India last year. Kukis and Maites have never fought ever. There have been history of Nagas and Kukis, they clashed. There have been a history of the Maite Pangas, those are the Maite Muslims, and the Maites, the Maite Hindu, they clashed. In 1997, the Kukis clashed. It was called an in-house fight. The third house being Kukis and the Kuki Paite, the Kuki umbrella.
That's okay, but Ali, talk about, let's talk, Ali, talk about why isn't this conflict coming to an end?
Honestly, I believe there's no problem in this world which, if you focus your energies right,
that's absolutely fine. But why? Pinpoint. Please tell me, why do you think this problem is not being solved?
We obviously haven't focused our energies correctly. We would be more interested in knowing about what.
Do you think the Americans are involved? It's a yes or no question. Do you think that the Americans are involved? Do you think outside forces are involved?
I don't think so.
Do you think China is involved?
Yeah, outside forces, yes. Outside forces, yes. Most certainly. I always suspected China from the very, very beginning, not just now. Even the time when I was fighting insurgency there was definitely the underground factions in Manipur. Where would they be getting their arms, ammunition and their money from? It was always there. I've always felt that. It's not just now, it's not just the violence, but now there's a difference between the insurgents, the underground groups, and the common person. Even social groups have picked up arms. They become armed groups over there, unfortunately. So, where have the weapons come from? It's very simple to say, oh, some 6,000 weapons were looted from the police armory. No, it is much more to that. So, most certainly Chinese hand, I had always.
Ali, there seems to be an issue. There seems to be an issue with your connection. Perhaps log out and log in again. I'm going to go back to General Katoch. General Katoch, obviously, Ali, with his own opinion, he's saying there are influences of outside forces. You have said it's the Americans. But why isn't the government admitting to the same?
No, just let me clarify a few things, Vineet. It'll just take a minute, then I'll get back to why isn't the government doing anything. No external agency can get involved in an internal problem which doesn't exist unless you create that problem. I'm not denying that. But if you deny that money is not coming from abroad, that the US are good boys, they only wanted love and peace in Bangladesh, so they threw out Sheikh Hasina after a third election win, well, keep dreaming. I mean, I've got no problem if people want to dream. If they don't want to confront the reality which stares them in the face, that's all right. That's their privilege. I will give you my views. Now, Manipur has been a problem for a very, very long time, ever since independence. Largely because since independence, the state of India neglected Manipur. It is not something which has happened over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. We neglected Manipur for decades, since 1947. And of course, we allowed the problems to fester. And at some point of time, the breaking point took place. The foreign agencies came in, the money started coming in, the church groups have started coming in, and the church groups, I will make it very, very explicit, are very active. They do the funding. In Myanmar, Myanmar is a totally disturbed state. They don't have the capacity or the capability to look after what is happening on the borders. So, movement of arms and drugs, either way, both ways, is very simple. It doesn't matter how many troops you put. One of the, the panelists from Mizoram said, why can't the army stop them? I have served in Mizoram for 2 years as the commander there. Have you seen those borders? Please go to those borders. Do you know how many troops are required to ensure that not a single person crosses the border? These things, they're very easily said, okay, do this, do that. If you want to stop 100% movement, then you've got to put at least 50 to 60,000 troops on the ground, put a proper fence with electronics and everything. And then you have a fence like we have on the Pakistan border. That is the effort required. Otherwise, these are hill areas. Anybody can come in and go across. Even despite the border with Pakistan, we can still move across with small, well-planned groups. So leave that aside. We need today we need peace. One, the communities need to come forward. They need to come forward. There is an initiative being taken by the Chief Minister. Please come forward, talk. Take the weapons out. If that talks doesn't work, then hand over the situation to the army, impose ASPA across the state, and we will take the weapons out. The Indian Army, along with the Assam Rifles, will take those weapons out, whichever group has got them, whether it is the Kukis or the Maitis or anybody else, in that geographical area, we'll take those weapons. And we'll ensure we take them. So that is not a problem. The Indian Army will do it. But do we have to go that path? Does it have to be everything through the army? And the army will not give you a political solution. The army will give you a military solution which can enable a political solution. So ultimately, you will still have to get back to the politics. Then why don't you get back to the politics now? I think it is incumbent on the part of the Kuki leaders and the Mighty leaders to sit across the table and to talk it out. The government of India will do whatever is required to help them, but ultimately it is the local leaders. And from the government of India side, I think we need to do something as to how to control the foreign funding and do something along the Myanmar border. I'm not sure exactly what can be done, but in my view, if we have to go across the border and sort out some of the camps which are located there, then I feel we should do that. Vineet.
Those are good ideas. Mr. Langel, do you concur with General Katoch that the root of this foreign funding, which mostly all our panelists have conceded to exist, needs to be broken down, needs to be analyzed and needs to be stopped, perhaps like the way we did in Jammu and Kashmir? Sir, I can't hear you.
You're on mute, sir. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Hello.
So, yeah, I can hear you now, sir. Go on.
Okay. I respect General Katoch's views, but I wouldn't go with him as far as to blame the churches funding them. I don't think he has any evidence.
Oh, I have the evidence.
No, I don't think so. If evidence is there, the government is entitled to take action. But I have my point on the fairness of the government. Militants, terrorists are roaming freely, fully armed, heavily armed in Imphal. No one is arrested, there is no ASPA. Whereas in the hills, ASPA is reimposed again. So how can there be peace when one group is roaming freely in Imphal Valley and going in government vehicles, How can it be? But the hills, in the hills, the ASPA has been there, it has been reimposed again. Of course, arms and ammunition are smuggling. But please tell me, how are the militants, terrorists in Imphal? Thousands of Rambai Tengols, Meira Paibis, UNLF, and the declared banned terrorists, who are funding them? How can they manage like this without unless someone is funding them? you may barricade the border double, triple walls with double, triple walls, but unless you control whoever are inside, fully armed, heavily armed, there will never be peace.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.